Steve Weikal is a lecturer, researcher, and a CRE tech lead in the MIT Real Estate Innovation Lab. He focuses on innovation, new technology, and business models that are reinventing the traditional ways of developing, transacting, and managing real estate. He is also the head of industry relations at the MIT Center for Real Estate. He's responsible for managing relationships between the center and its global network of industry partners and over 1,300 alumni representing 48 countries. Steve is a member of the Global Insights Panel for MIT Technology Review, a member of the CRE Tech Climate Leadership Board, and sits on the advisory boards of 6 real estate and technology companies. Oh my God, I thought I was busy. That's insane. And so much more. And you can read all about him in our IFMA Boston community platform, which is up now. Without further ado, I'd like to bring Steve Weikal to the stage, and let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know about the Center for Real Estate, we're a research group within the School of Architecture and Planning at MIT. And there we go. It was founded in 1984 by some real estate folks here in Boston, Hank Spalding, Don Chaffaro, Ron Rucker, some names that those of you who have been in the business for a while might recognize those names. And they felt that it was important for a couple of reasons to establish this at MIT. One was to train the next generation of leaders for the commercial real estate industry. And the other was to provide research to the industry so that we can better understand how our industry operates and anticipate the future. And so I have the good fortune to work with about 25 researchers at all levels, faculty members, postdocs, pre-docs, a lot of very smart people who are really looking at what the future might look like for us, and we do that through a couple of different ways. There are some labs at the Center for Real Estate that work on different things, and then also these initiatives. I happen to be involved with the Real Estate Innovation Lab and also the Real Estate Technology Initiative. I'll share a little bit about what we're seeing. And the way, as you may know with MIT, we're pretty good about engaging with the industry. The center itself works with a number of companies. Many of these, some of you are here in the audience. Thank you for your continued support if you are from one of these companies. But it also gives us a window into what's happening out there so that we don't do this in kind of the academic bubble. We're able to really have a sense of what's happening. So I'll share, there's a lot, we could do a whole term. I actually teach a whole course on this. 4 trends. We'll cover 4 trends today. The first is the Startup Tsunami. I'll share what that is and what we're seeing. And there's a lot of startup activity going on in the tech space, trying to impact the built environment broadly, not just real estate tech. And then also this thing we call real estate fracking. Some of you may have heard me talk about this. I'll explain what that is. And really there's a kind of a 2.0 that's going on. And also going hybrid. We all know that there's a lot of conversation about hybrid in the workplace. It's bigger than just in the workplace, so we'll talk a bit about that. And then also real estate is getting smarter. We know that. And I'll touch on some of the aspects of that we think are exciting and interesting in that area of real estate getting smarter. So let's start with the Startup Tsunami. In 2013, we did a conference with some startup companies that we knew were trying to, around the edges, change the industry, trying to solve some of the pain points that we've had in the industry over the years. And we were able to identify about 12 companies to come speak at our breakfast. And by 2022, that list is over 12,000. In fact, I've seen lists that are longer. This is a global number. Young companies trying to reinvent new business models, applying new technology. And we know in the last 10 years there's been a lot of technical breakthrough that have allowed companies to be formed in ways that we couldn't have even just 10 years ago. So immense growth in this area of the number of startup companies. You can also look at it from the standpoint of the amount of VC, a staggering amount of VC that's going into this category. Now, this is just real estate tech. This doesn't include construction tech and some of the other techs that have kind of overlapped over the years. But just, it's a little tough to see. In 2010, there was about $1 billion. This also includes residential real estate technology, so which I know is not entirely relevant to what we do at the center or to this group, but it's kind of folded together. But just look at the staggering growth. 2018, we thought was the high water mark, 27+ billion. And then in 2021, 32 billion. Despite COVID, it calmed down in the first quarter because everybody was on edge about what the future looked like. And then suddenly the floodgates opened up. Part of it is there was a lot of, as you know, there's a lot of capital out there. Maybe that'll ease back a bit, but still an immense amount of money going into this conversation about reinventing real estate and how the real estate business operates. I did want to put this in because this is relevant to our audience today, that smart building tech, the Wall Street Journal broke this out, 1.63 billion so far in 2022. Smart building tech. Now, I don't quite know how they define that, but this is the kind of stuff that you're either using or you're getting emails from startup companies saying, hey, can we do a trial with you? You know, can we help you solve this problem or that problem? That's a big number, and it will grow bigger. It's sort of related to IoT. It's related to real estate tech. It can be a little related to fintech. They're all kind of blending together. But I think that's a big number. It's probably going to get bigger. So sometimes people ask me, where is that funding coming from? And it's instructive because in our particular area, it tends to be strategic VC, what we refer to as strategics. These are real estate companies that are taking some of their capital and they're putting it into technology, which is very unusual. As you know, real estate developers and owner-operators, investors, they tend to stay laser focused on what they do best. But now they're getting into the tech game. Now, they may not be getting into the tech game. We don't see them getting into the tech game necessarily with the expectation that they're going to get wildly wealthy off of technology investing, because that's kind of a different business. However, they are deploying this technology back into their portfolios, and that's really where the benefit comes out for them. Some of them are also sector focused. Simon Ventures, Simon does retail. There was Surprise Brick and Mortar does infrastructure. Then there's some in-house, some of the big companies like JLL and Tishman and Brookfield are actually, they have their own in-house funds with a lot of money. I think Tishman just did another $100 million fund. Then there's some accelerators like ours, DesignX at MIT, and other accelerators where these really young companies get a chance to kind of get grown and then get some traction, and then they go out and get funding from the folks in earlier in that list. And then you've heard about SPACs. I think the verdict is out on whether SPACs actually were a good idea or not. We'll see. So these are some of the companies that are playing big in the space. Some of them are familiar, some of them not so familiar, and this is just a short list of them. But you can see the variety of it. So my friend Brad Riley at Fifth Wall, which is the largest real estate tech fund, he really feels that the VCs are funding the R&D for the real estate industry, and I have to agree. As an industry, it's not like the car business or the drug business or the computer hardware business where where the companies get together and they do R&D. This is the R&D that's going on, and some of it's happening right at MIT. So that's just a quick overview of what's happening in the prop tech tsunami. By the way, feel free to interrupt the way my students do. If you have a question, if it wasn't clear, as you can tell, I'm moving really fast on this stuff. This is me without caffeine.
What is SPAC?
So feel free to jump up if you have a question. Yes, question.
What was SPACs?
SPAC, oh, I'm sorry. SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company. And it's sort of a reverse merger. You have a company that doesn't have a product and they raise a bunch of money it's a way to go public without having to go IPO. And so you can read about it online. Some question, the SEC is now looking into it, but it was a way for some of these younger companies to exit and frankly cash out the early founders. So SPAC, SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company, I think. Good question. Okay, real estate fracking. What's that? My colleague Dennis Frenchman at MIT described this as using technology to break the asset or sometimes the use of the asset into smaller pieces and reconfigure them into new models and new businesses that have higher value. Okay, that's a lot to take on. Let me give you two great examples. One is co-working. I put WeWork up here just because WeWork, as you know, they had a lot of headlines. It blew up a little bit, a lot. But they fundamentally reinvented how we think of office space. They fundamentally changed the office space model. So you got to hand it to them for that. But this was the idea where they sliced and diced office space in a way that was different than the 10-year lease with 2 5-year renewals. Airbnb did that for kind of hospitality. Remember when they were just so that I could rent out my extra bedroom to somebody who was traveling to a conference or something. That's how they started, and they turned into a multi-billion-dollar global company. So that's this fracking idea, which is a little like oil and gas. So it's not just in those two examples. This has been happening everywhere, and truthfully, it was happening before COVID, which is why I bring it up, because I'm sure you're seeing it, or you're feeling the trend happening in whatever particular environment you're working in. We've got liquid space, which allows you to book empty boardrooms. Think how underutilized boardrooms are. But then they also went over to Marriott, and they're helping Marriott book their meeting rooms in a way that they couldn't before, kind of on-demand, Ubering these boardroom spaces. Optics does this with empty cubicles and empty floors of office space, a little different in that they'll help you monetize as an owner, monetize an empty floor. By the way, we can share these slides. You can feel free to take pictures and notes, but we'll share the slides later. And then Let's Work, they're going into hotels, helping hotels monetize the space. Can you do pop-up co-working in hotels? And think how great that is for hotels. Up until recently, they were really struggling. And then you get all of the ancillary income from the food and beverage. So these are really interesting models that are kind of turning upside down our traditional thinking of real estate. But it also happens at MIT, this is relevant to us at MIT, it also happens in lab space. Think about a company that leaves MIT, where do they go? Kind of a company that's developed a molecule or something scientific, they need wet lab space. They can't just go to where we work. They go to a place called BioLabs, and there are a couple of others. Has anybody gotten a call or an email from REEF yet? You might. They're looking to how can we take the spaces between the buildings? Can we do, and they'll organize food truck festivals, and they'll help monetize that space that's in between the buildings. And at the center, because we're in the School of Architecture and Planning, we don't just look at the building, we look at the city and the context. And so REEF is very interesting, and they made another acquisition I'll tell you about in a moment. So that's kind of in the retail area, and then residential, we won't spend too much time on this, but residential, anybody here who's renting knows that maybe the 12-month rent is going to go by the wayside. You'll rent what you need and when you need it, and maybe you'll be in Boston for 6 months, and then you'll go to London for 3 months, but you'll be renting from the same company the whole time. So this idea of furnished, high-end, but not always high-end, ways to live, that's changing. It's changing the residential business. And then in the industrial, anybody here manage industrial properties or work with industrial properties? Yeah. So this is interesting. This idea of industrial as a service, but also we're all users of Amazon and same-day delivery or one-day delivery. So Fabric builds robotic distribution systems in the most unconventional of spaces. The future is uncertain about office. So what are we going to do with the B and C buildings? Can we repurpose them in ways? And retail has been going through this transformation. So these kinds of technology applications are really exciting and interesting. And then there was COVID. Co-working is going to go to malls. Hotels are going to convert to apartment buildings, and actually offices may convert to apartment buildings and labs. And then retail, we know that retail's converting to anything, everything and anything. So the technology will enable that, though. None of this is easy, but the technology will enable it. My friend Mark Grinnis at EY, he has a great way of saying this, that commercial real estate is no longer a fixed asset, it's fluid. And I'm sure that has his colleagues on the auditing side apoplectic, because real estate was always thought of as this hard asset, predictable like a bond, and we just know that that's not true anymore. It's going to change. It's changing now, and it will continue to change. So that's the background on fracking. I love that phrase, and hopefully that'll stick with you in this way that we're rethinking the real estate to unlock the value. Let's talk about how work is going hybrid. We all know, you've read, I'm sure many of you are trying to understand what the hybrid future looks like. And I won't go too far into this, but I do want to share a few ideas about the things that we're seeing again in our conversations out in the industry. And this is a great example. It's a little tough to read, but it was some research that was done by Gallup. They interviewed 140,000 people, And the preferred location, the column on the far right, preferred location for exclusively remote, 32%. But notice how it shifted over time. Pre-pandemic is all the way over on the left, and then they tested during the pandemic and some anticipation, and then hybrid and fully on-site. So these numbers, the second row is hybrid and the third row is fully on-site. Fully on-site, only 9% maybe. Again, this is sentiment. This isn't actual numbers. This is sentiment. Yes?
Is this asking the employer or the employee?
This was asking 140,000 employees. Good question. This was because also the opinion of the employer is going to be very different from the opinion of the employee.
Yeah.
Just ask Jamie Dimon, right? Because he got called out for making comments and then having to kind of walk them back because the reality as the reality unfolds. But anyway, interesting numbers about sentiment. So we'll talk. I'm going to just talk briefly about two things. Hub. What technologies are helping us on the hub part of the hub and spoke? Hub and spoke is one version of this hybrid. So I'll talk about hub first. Some issues about the hub. These are not only, but the hub, which is us, which is you and the buildings and people coming and going. Capacity, desks and meeting rooms, how to manage that. Access, visitor management, health and safety, parking. I think these are the things that are very often FM issues. And so that we looked at from the hub standpoint, and there's some interesting companies that have come on the scene. And you can take a look at these. They're all a little bit different. Autonomous, Eden, Steerpath, Envoy, Optics. They all have a little bit of a different approach, but they are trying to better understand how to optimize. So there's still fracking going on, because that was also about optimizing space. How do we have the least amount of space necessary in order for our workforce? Except now you have an element of COVID in there, and you've got an element of hybrid work. So it has moved to a next generation or a fracking 2.0. These are some of the companies that are helping us understand that. How will people use the space? How do we reserve the space? How do we secure the space? How do we keep it clean and healthy? They will go up alongside some of these names, which are probably familiar to you. These are some of what I call the legacy players. And again, you would know better than I. There are lots of others in this space. The legacy kind of facility management tools that you use. Some of these will be familiar, some of them may not be. They're all a little bit different. AppFolio is actually a multi-family tool, but they're trying to get into the office sector. So that's how we manage the hub in a way that's effective and efficient. And what was that great quote about? In office, on-site is the new off-site. Have you been experiencing that? Where I guess our off-sites, this big excitement over getting together with our colleagues, is actually going to happen in our old office rather than out here at places like this. So, that's some technology. These are some technology providers that are enabling that. Then there are some also. We sort of have to figure out the spoke piece of it too. And I won't go into there's a whole issue of IT and security and when work bleeds, is my living room now in your portfolio of office? Or should you be managing my dining room table now? Or are you obligated to do that? A whole bunch of issues around that. You are certainly better answering that than I. But here are some companies that are trying to manage the spoke piece of it. So you've got Space Hub and Office Hub. Allow me as a worker to choose wherever I want to work if it's maybe not in my living room or dining room. Where can I go? Can it be Starbucks? Can it be co-working out in the suburbs? Could it be other places like that company I mentioned that's doing co-working in hotels? They're enabling hotels to be a destination for working. So that's the spoke piece of it. CBRE had from one of their recent reports had a quote that encapsulates it. The role of the workplace is shifting toward a more intentional work setting defined by its ability to bring people and teams together. It's less about the space. I know my real estate friends will be disappointed by this. It's less about the building and more about the way people work and what can we provide to them to allow them to do that. So that was a little bit of discussion on hybrid work. We've got what we call the UI or the UX of real estate, user interface or the user experience. of real estate. This is a bit related to the hub because some of those companies do what some of these companies do. Any HQO or Lane or Equium users here? Does that ring a bell at all? This is a group called the Tenant Engagement Apps. And very often they'll plug into the BMS systems. They started as helping me get my dog walked, book the yoga classes, order avocado toast. But it's grown to be bigger than that, and now they have spread out to handle health reporting and safety and health reporting, security and access, room booking. So there is some convergence going on, but these are interesting ones to take a look at. Lane got acquired by VTS, which is big. They have some funding from Brookfield. HQO is I think just announced a big deal with Vornado. They are they're establishing the platform for this kind of thing. Now, I listed the other ones because I should mention these first two are, they're crowdsourced. It's an app and we gather all the data and we analyze that. It's the user interacts with those apps. These other ones, Verge Sense and Density, this is hardware. Anybody done a Verge sensor or a density trial? Yeah. And which one? Verge sensor or density?
Density.
Density, and they have, it's sort of what, like a camera with sensors
It's
on
like
it?
a sensor and it tracks it in and out, like one in, one out.
Yeah, so this, and there was a company called Pico that got acquired by IBM early on. I think this is interesting. So what we're talking about is a system of sensors that tracks where people are, and they can track temperature, and they can really understand what's going on in this space in a dynamic, real-time way, and it allows you to make decisions based on that. I know that Schneider Electric and some of the other lighting companies have also proposed censoring. I mean, when we get power over Ethernet, PoE, that's going to change a lot too, because we're going to actually be able to gather data off the fixtures, off of the lighting system and the electrical system. We may not need density or Verge Sense, which is a kind of an add-on system, but in the interim, to be able to use hardware, these are hardware solutions versus the software solutions. So that'll converge. Anyway, that's the UI, the user interface, or the UX, the user experience of real estate. And then chatbots. Let me give you an example of this. Know what a chatbot is? Have you used chatbots?
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second.
Okay, the reason that's not a laugh is because the voice on the
At 12
left
p.m.
is a
We
computer.
do not have a 12
It's a
p.m.
chat.
available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.? Depending on what service she would like, what service is she looking for? Just a woman's haircut for now? Okay, we have it 10 o'clock. 10 a.m. is fine.
Okay, so that's pretty amazing, right? The one on the left was a chatbot, wasn't a real human being, and the one on the right was a real human being. I had a friend who booked a lunch, and he said, did you get a chance to talk to my new assistant? I said, no, but we emailed, and he said, well, how'd she do? I said, she did great. And he said, that's not a real person. I said, you're kidding me. He said, yeah, it's a chatbot. And I said, wow. I said, well, how do you know? Is she, how effective is she? Is she better than your assistant? He said, a lot better. So anyway, these things are getting smarter, and just on this topic of chatbot, that was Google Duplex. You can see it online. IBM says that chatbots can now answer about 80% of standard questions, and actually it's going up. IP Soft, which is a smartphone retailer in Europe, said that the bot correctly detected customer intent 90% of the time. 90% of the time. Pretty crazy. So anyway, but imagine, so that was just a chatbot, but now imagine if we start combining other technologies in this, and watch this one.
Hey tool,
Hey Sergey, what can I help you?
4th floor, room number 2, Anderson Construction. Head joint thickness is over 20 millimeters. Added to issue list.
Issue added. Do you want to take a picture of this defect?
Yes.
Interface opened. Picture added.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's integrated with a little bit of machine learning, a little bit of machine vision, a chatbot. It's integrated with the booking and scheduling. This is a company called I2. They were just acquired. But and here's the other part of this.
We need to repaint ceiling in room number 3, added to punch list for drywall wise, with due day April 26.
Done.
Actually, I want to talk with their project manager. Schedule a meeting for this Friday.
Is 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. okay for you?
Yes.
Schedule set and sent it to DrywallWise Project Manager.
Thank you, Mark 2.
Okay, so that's not just a sales demo. That's actually how the system works. Now, I don't have data on how accurate it is, but this is, even if we're early on this stuff, and this was a couple of years ago, just imagine. And I put this example, I think, is a good one for FM people in the FM space. How, because you're struggling with hiring people and efficiency. So I think the future could look like this, and we're really not that far away from it. So that was chatbots, and then there are companies here's some companies that are doing it. I should mention that some of these are on the residential side, but nonetheless, because multifamily gets 50% of their inquiries after hours. So they're actually closing leases. You combine this with a digital lease system, and suddenly now you can close deals in the middle of the night whenever somebody's available who might be in a different time zone or work on strange hours. So this chatbots are really interesting. Let me talk briefly about safety. By the way, this getting smarter category could be a whole hour on its own, so I just picked out some that I thought you would find interesting. You can follow up on them. Let's just talk about safety. SafeSite is a platform to help better manage safety issues around the property. Also keep track of all of the certifications and the other things that you have to manage, which often are managed in PDFs and Dropbox, which was certainly better than paper and file folders. And Arc Facilities. Arc Facilities is a company that I'm an advisor to, so full disclosure, but what they're doing is they're digitizing the plan room. I see these pictures of the plan room that are like the paper monster, you know, they're just stacked high with all the old plans, and they're digitizing those and then putting them into an app so that if I get called to a building and there's a flood and I need to find that shutoff valve, I actually have it in the app, I tap it, and it tells me where the shutoff valve is. It's a way to go back and you know, in a new building, chances are we've already got that because we started with digital, but they're doing the transformation from analog to digital. And also, I noticed that existing conditions in the other room is doing some of the same approach, which is how do you take, let's remember, I think, what, 98% of the built environment already exists. You know, we've got to figure out how to manage that. Not all of us will get to work with a new building that has all the bells and whistles. So I think that's a neat solution, is to how do we go back and get the plans from a building where we've kind of lost the as-built drawings and the current situation. Helix, they track and maintain equipment and park and supplies in one location. So I put that under safety because I would imagine if an if an area handling system goes down, it could be mission critical, and we need to know about what the service record was, what the service history was, where the parts are, and that will be further integrated in the existing legacy systems. So that's sort of a riff on safety. Let me talk about ESG, and again, we could do ESG for hours. I'm sure it's all on the top of your mind because you're getting a lot of, I would imagine, pressure from a lot of different directions on ESG, and I'll just mention the E part of it, ESG, the energy part. Some really great companies that are trying to understand not only the management of energy along the line of iterative, but also measurable, trying to understand, especially if we get regulations that show that we have to now demonstrate what our ESG results have been. We'll need companies like Measurable and Energy Cap, and Evora was one that I just came across this morning. There's a big project in London, a Norman Foster project. Norman Foster, a big starchitect. They platinum building, negative carbon, negative energy. Didn't get approved because they didn't take into account the embodied energy of the supply chains and the buildings they were tearing down. So this is not easy stuff. This is kind of mind-numbing MIT level stuff to try to figure it out. I certainly won't be on that team, but hopefully my colleagues will help figure this out, because I think those questions will start being asked. So that's briefly on the ESG. And then digital twin. Everybody know what a digital twin is?
Like that looks really good.
It might have come up. Yeah, digital twin. Digital twin is the digital representation of something in the physical world. And it's been around for a while in the way jet engines get manufactured, the way complex manufacturing systems, PTC right here in Boston, does a lot of digital twin work on manufacturing. It's starting now to come into the built environment. And this is the fully digital, this is like building the jet engine digitally and testing it and doing all of the design work before you ever actually make a part to do a prototype. So imagine what that would be like with a building. Now we have a little bit of it when you have BIM and some of the other systems when a new building gets developed, but it's harder with the existing
Willow
built
Twin
environment.
is a digital replica of exactly what the building is made up of.
All the security, scalability, cloud, AI technologies that Willow leverages inside of the Willow Twin are a fundamental component inside of the Azure Digital Twin stack.
It's comprised of the architectural drawings, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems,
the building automation system, occupancy, sensor networks.
all of the equipment that goes into the building. There's over 40,000 data points.
And we can look at all of these systems together in real time and understand how one is affecting the other and respond to that. I believe the digital twin platform has great potential here to allow us to understand how people use our places and how they enjoy our places and how to improve on that.
What Willow is doing is taking the Azure Digital Twins ontology, which can apply to any industry, any application around the world, and we are fitting that ontology to the built environment.
This is one building, but when we add buildings across the Brookfield portfolio, we can then look at things through a portfolio lens. We can understand macro trends in terms of how different buildings are performing against different service providers in different geographies, against different asset classes. And to have this common data ontology that's amongst all these different asset classes is a world's first.
That's on the horizon, it's not far off, and some people are already doing it. So that's on Twin. Last topic, I thought I would just share a little bit about augmented reality, because it's related to the Twin. If you have this digital representation of the building, it's possible that we'll be able to interact not just through a browser on a laptop, but we might be able to interact in an augmented or virtual way. And so what do I mean by that? Pokemon is a good example of augmented reality. Anybody have kids who Pokemon, right? So Pokemon superimposes stuff on the physical world, and then they get prizes and they spend a lot of your money probably. Niantic, who owns Pokemon, they have hundreds of millions of players in 153 countries, and they generate about $3 million a day. Or it's more than that now. So it's immense amounts of money on this kind of superimposed. Now this is just a game. But has anybody used the Wayfair or the Ikea augmented reality tool? Yeah. Yeah, have you used it? It's pretty cool, actually. Did it work for you? Yeah. Yeah. Can you press the button and then order it, like right then? Or do you have to then order it separately?
You can do like it's below when you take the picture.
Oh yeah, they got you.
Yeah.
They got you, right? So
Pick up your phone and then it just goes there.
it's right there, right? I mean, it's like Amazon. They send stuff to me before I even order it because they know I need it. So anyway, Wayfair and Ikea, this chair is from the catalog, but the room is yours. So you're looking through your phone, through your device, and you just want to see what the chair looks like in this part of the room or that part of the room, or you can change chairs, and then you tap on it and it sends it to you and charges it to your credit card. So that's augmented reality. But then it can also kind of be related to this digital twin idea. And this is a basic version, but imagine you're doing a walkthrough of a building that hasn't yet been built, and just on the right side, this guy currently is using his phone. So as he's looking through the phone, he feels like he's in the room, which is happening on the left. So imagine what that would be like in the workplace, where we could kind of, in an augmented way, understand systems, navigate the space, and pretty soon we're not going to have the phone. It'll be here in the glasses. So Apple glasses on the bottom will probably be dropped. The glasses on the upper left are the Facebook Nazarene glasses, and then the one on the right is Snap, is issuing their own glasses. We will have information projected on the insides of our glasses, or not. You can tap it on and off. And but imagine this is the HoloLens. Anybody use HoloLens on site to do repairs? No, not yet. So this guy in the middle is the service technician somewhere in the world who's working with the person who's actually on site on your team, making the repair here on whatever this compressor is. And she's seeing it through the lenses, but it's augmented. She's seeing him, but also seeing the actual physical work that she's doing. So that could really have some pretty amazing implications on how we manage properties and how we operate buildings. So I turned the sound off on this one. This is just a retail solution, a retail demonstration that I think is interesting. Loblaws in Canada, they're using this. It tells me where to find what's on my shopping list. It tells me the freshness and the nutritional value and the things that I'm picking up. It's also doing a running total on my purchases. So all of this kind of information will be projected on our glasses if we want it. I'm comparing two products to see which one's healthier, and then it's going to tell me where the weight is slower. And of course, if you combine that with the Amazon store, you won't even have to look for weight. You'll just walk out the front door and it'll charge a credit card. So this is, again, this kind of augmented world that we're going to be living in.
The in-store experience can be designed to not only make shopping more streamlined, but also provide a shopping experience as unique as each shopper. This data works within an intelligent system to provide our customers with useful information in real time, and each experience is customized to suit the individual's needs. We're at a point in technology where we're seeing the highest level of measurable improvements in health and well-being as a result of consumer-grade health and wellness technology. The consumer feels empowered.
This raises another question, is that when this content is being fed to our glasses, and it'll be unique for each of us depending upon what our habits are, right? Because we know Google, if you and I Google something, your page is going to look different from mine. So what happens when our glasses look different? I'm a Coke consumer instead of a Mountain Dew consumer. But the key here, how many of you have seen digital rights clauses in your building? Either a lease or ownership or operating? Rules and regulations for your tenants or users about digital rights? Anybody have them? You have them. Excellent.
Like taking pictures of the space.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's to tell everybody it's to manage what they can and cannot do in the digital world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I don't want that lost. Who owns this Coca-Cola ad up here? Who should own the ad? Who should get the money from that ad? Well, building owner, I'm a real estate guy. Heck yes, building owner should get it, except maybe this is Coca-Cola's world headquarters. They might have written into the lease, we can use the building, we got the naming rights on the top of the building, so we now have the digital naming rights as well. We can do digital stuff on the building, and we don't have to pay you, Mr. or Mrs. Landlord, Ms. Landlord, we don't have to pay you $1, a cent. So anyway, I just bring it up because it's kind of a big question, because what happens when the world looks like this? Right? There's a building under there, by the way. And McDonald's, this might be Burger King's world headquarters, and McDonald's, through Google probably, is able to serve up an ad on Burger King's world headquarters. That doesn't seem right. Burger King's not going to like it either. Or political ads, or something that's offensive, that doesn't align with who you are as an owner, who you are as a tenant in the building. So this idea of augmented rights, I think, is very, very important to keep in mind. And this leads us into the metaverse, and I'm going to close with just one clip for you to see. So we talked about digital twin, and we've talked about the glasses, and all of this digital stuff is converging. And then you hear Mark Zuckerberg talk about the metaverse. I'll make it easy for you. Metaverse is the 3D web. We live in a 2D web that's slightly 3D. But metaverse is all of these things coming together. The virtual worlds, the gaming, the augmented world, a bunch of other stuff in this mashup that is what we refer to as the 3D web.
Let's take a look at what working in the metaverse will be like. Imagine if you could be at the office without the commute. You would still have that sense of presence, shared physical space, those chance interactions that make your day all accessible from anywhere. Now imagine that you have your perfect work setup and you can actually do more than you could in your regular work setup. And on top of all that, you can keep wearing your favorite sweatpants.
Looking good. Let's get together real quick for a debrief.
I'm free now. Let's jump in. Hi.
Hey.
So what do we think?
I think it's ready.
Great.
I'll prep it for the presentation.
All right. Good luck.
Imagine a space where you can tune out distractions and focus on the task at hand. And when you're ready to share what you've been working on, you can present it as if you're right there with the team.
Wait, where's Mark?
I think he's in the middle of something.
That just gives you a sense of this convergence of what work might look like, which is a little scary, but it's also pretty cool. So anyway, with that, I'll leave one last comment from my colleague, Andrea Chagou, who says that buildings of the future will be fully autonomous, touchless, flexible, and they'll be responsive to the human experience. And all of this technology is going to enable that. And with that, I'll say thank you very much for your time. And I hope some of these were great ideas that will get you thinking about this, and we'll distribute the slides, and you can follow up or shoot me an email if you have any other questions.